totally ludicrous. And oftentimes, usually when you have the first one, say, you know, can we go back to the plan? Because I don't think it's going to be 6 anymore. You know,
So always, let's see how this goes.
The soccer team is not an option.
It isn't.
No, it's not.
And so on. I have more grandchildren than I have children, and phew, we had 3 of them in 1 year, and phew, phew. Okay, so 6 would have been really something else, but 6 in 1 year. But anyway, I'm gonna let you look at this, and I'm gonna read these. I have a reproductive life plan. About 3 or 4 years ago, the March of Dimes, along with other agencies in the nation, joined with the CDC to come up with this preconception idea. And I'll talk more about that at the very end, because they have a vision for all of us women. And I'll explain that to you. But the biggest part of that vision, and the number one thing, is to have a reproductive life plan. Knowing when you want to get pregnant and so on. Because if there are some things in your life that you need to change, the earlier the better, and so on. And understanding that what happens early in your life may affect what happens later in your life is something that we as women and men learn after the fact. We really do, and so on. Hello, how are you? Here's where we stand with you. It's like, do you hope to have any more children? How many children do you hope to have? How long do you plan to wait until you next become pregnant? How much space do you plan to have between your pregnancies? What do you plan to do until you're ready to become pregnant? Okay? How are you going to keep that from happening? And that, of course, is totally up to you with some advice from your health provider. And what can we do today to help you achieve that plan? And so I hope that will definitely be part of what we do. Hi, Donna, welcome.
Sorry we're late.
No, I'm sorry to have my back to you.
That's okay.
For heaven's sake, you know, and so on. But does that make sense? Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And you can see on the 9 things to do before you get pregnant, a lot of those come through here. It'd be contraception, how long should you wait between pregnancies, and conventional wisdom again says waiting 6 to 9 months is probably acceptable. We'd like to see, especially someone who has had a preemie before, if there's no time limits for you. For some women, there are time limits, and we really work with that. But we'd really like to see 18 months to 2 years between the birth of one baby and the birth of the next. Okay, that has been borne out with research to show that the outcomes were better in the form of low birth weight and premature birth prevention. Okay. Okay, so where do we make it? Think ahead. We're now on the I. And that's it. Are your immunizations up to date? So are you in the best possible health in that respect? So, and that's especially true of one of the immunizations, which is rubella. Rubella is 3-day measles. It is part of the shot that your child gets at 15 to 18 months. It's an MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella. It can be separated out, but rubella is, we know if a mom gets rubella during the first 3 months, can have some fairly serious complications as far as birth defects go. Cardiac birth defects, mental retardation, blindness, and deafness. And with the advent of the rubella shot, the immunization, we very rarely see this. But we do like to have moms have a blood titer to see if they really truly are rubella immune. We don't see a lot of these infections anymore, so sometimes it takes more than 1 injection. And I know that as a nurse, that was a real important thing for me, because babies were coming in that had cardiac defects and problems with blindness, and deafness, and we had to determine if this was caused by rubella, because there were nurses there that were pregnant. So that's an occupational hazard for us as nurses and so on. So this is really important for all of us to know that what we do can affect others around us and so on. But rubella is the thing. We're really pleased at the March of Dimes to say that immunization is ours. Hello, darling. That's okay. That's what we're here for. Yes. And Zachary's used to that, and there are babies all over the place. But in the late 1960s, 20,000 babies were affected by congenital rubella. So the March of Dimes sprung into action again, first time since polio for another vaccine, and by 1970, the rubella vaccine was created by March of Dimes researchers. So we're real pleased with that research, and we're real pleased that this is basically somewhat of a thing in the past.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that you should check and get better because of rubella shot.
Yeah. A lot of times they'll say, did you have this as a child?
Right.
Yeah,
no, I never heard that either.
Yeah. Yep. The N, we're on the N for think, and this is oftentimes a really hard topic for us not only to talk about, but for people to hear. And that is the national epidemic of either overweight or being underweight. And this is especially true for women. It's important to know that as far as nutritional status goes, that can truly affect a pregnancy adversely, and also not just for premature birth, but also for low birth weight as well. Okay? And again, some of the shifts that cause women to be overweight may have to do with hormonal issues, the very issues that I was talking about before that may affect fertility. Babies are us here, we listen to them all we want. But obesity, that's overweight by 20%. It's important to know that women who are overweight by 20%, though they don't utilize folic acid the way they should, and are 5 to 7 times more likely to have some of the problems of having lower folate levels. Okay, and that's why it's always real important to kind of look at those folate levels when you're working in between pregnancies. My grandson here's mother, as I said before, has PCOS. I think she's been trying to lose weight since she was like 17, and nothing really seems to work until we found out that she indeed had PCOS. So she went to a reproductive endocrinologist and now is seeing an endocrinologist. These things are very important because you have the predisposition in later life for diabetes, and diabetes in pregnancy as well. And in the last pregnancy, he has a almost 3-year-old brother, 2.5-year-old brother. Yeah, Noah. We ended up in infertility, but also being diagnosed with PCOS and gestational diabetes. Okay, very, very different from this pregnancy where got pregnant right away and no, nothing happened.